Hi, welcome back to my channel. In the last video, I introduced you to the basics and foundations of Material UI and how to implement it on your project. In this video, we'll talk about how to customize your components and theme to give it a more personal look rather than using the default theme. So let's get started. We will talk about how to customize your components. Depending on how you want to organize your styles, you might use any of these for your ideal use case. Let's start with one-off customization. This is probably the one you will use the most. Remember what I told you about the SX prop? Well, it is exactly that. It is used for when you just want to set styles specifically to that component or layout that you wouldn't use otherwise in other places in your project. It is similar to the style property you will use in HTML, but including Material UI's features. You can also target a component state like hover and selected. The ampersand is a selector for the current component, and the rest is what you will do with regular CSS. It is also possible to target the component's class if you want to increase its specificity. If you inspect this button, you will see it has a bunch of auto-generated classes by Material UI. This varies in each component, and you can find the full list on the Components API. This will be useful for another section. There is also a list of theme-aware properties that are mapped into the SX prop and the box component. These properties are essentially injected by the theme, so if you put a value that is on the theme, it will map correctly. However, if you set it to a property that is not theme-aware, then it will not do anything and display exactly what you typed. If for some scenario, you need to access the value from the theme, then you can pass in a callback function to the SX prop, taking the theme as parameter. This way you can access it directly. It is also possible to access it through the use theme hook if you need it in multiple places in your file. We'll talk about breakpoints. Material UI does a great job to facilitate developers to create a mobile design, which you could also do with SX props. The default breakpoints can be found in the theme, which is also totally customizable. More on that later. There are two ways to provide breakpoints to your components. You can provide an object into that property with the breakpoint as its key and set the desired value into that breakpoint, meaning from here on up it will have this value. A more implicit way is to provide an array, and the values goes from smallest to largest breakpoint. If for example you do not need a value on a certain breakpoint, you can set it to null and it will skip it. This is most of what you should know for the SX props. Now we'll jump to reusable components. If you find yourself using the same props and styles on the same component multiple times, then it might be a great idea to abstract this into its own separate component with the style function importing from Material UI. Just pass down the component to the function and style it as your heart desires. If you need properties from the theme, then you can pass a callback function to access the theme. If you also need to add some logic to your component, you can just pass in the property into that component and use it as a parameter in your style function. If you're using TypeScript, you should declare a new interface extending the original component's props. I normally don't use this kind of styling because it does seem a bit complicated for me. I would rather just declare my own component, styling it with XX props and reuse that instead. But this is just my personal opinion. If I needed something more standard, then I would use global theme overrides. This is a bit more tricky to get started with, but it gives you the most control of your entire design system. First, let's talk about how to create our own theme, because by default, the Material UI theme is provided. To create our own theme, we need the function createTheme by importing it from Material. This will internally merge Material's theme with any modifications we do on this function. On the official website, you can find how it is structured, but it's not limited, meaning you can add your own properties as well. Since we are using buttons as an example, I'm gonna change its default variant to contained, and this button class in which can be found on the Components API, and export the theme. Now, to use this custom theme, we need to wrap our components with another component called theme provider, and pass that theme to it. Anything inside theme provider will inherit the styles of the theme passed to it. So I will add a button, and as you can see, it has the styles and props I have set on the custom theme. And this will work on any button that has the variant contained and has set its color to primary. This is very useful if you want to set a standard for the components. I recommend starting from the palette because those colors are inherited to all components. That's why in most variants or colors properties, you'll see these colors. You can also add your own variants to a component through the variants prop and enable it through module augmentation if you're using TypeScript. This method takes the most time because you have to set up your colors, typographies, and components behaviors. However, it is one that can scale the best on a large project in my opinion. Onto the next one, which I personally don't use often, but it's good to know, is global CSS overrides. The reason why I don't use it is because I have all I need on the CSS baseline component, where it basically uses normalized.css to reset your styles so you don't have to worry about resetting margins or changing the border box. However, if for some reason you need to change HTML styles, then Material exposes a component called global styles, where you can set any CSS styles and it will be available globally. Alternatively, you can also override the styles of the CSS baseline component on the theme instead of using global styles. That's it for me. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe as this helps to support my channel. See you later.